This is The Wilderness and the Wellspring, a podcast about the difficult times when you want to give up on your creative pursuits and the beauty of the act of creation. I'm your host, Jeff Lunt. This is episode 16, Taking Breaks. I recently took about 3 months off from doing the podcast and did very little programming or creative work on the game, focusing instead on just doing my day job, trying to do it well, and then taking a break in the evenings, every evening. There's a few reasons for this. The main one is I just really needed a break. And the secondary one, although probably more important, was that I had a big anniversary, big wedding anniversary this year, and my wife and I took a big trip for a couple of weeks. That was right at the beginning of my 3-month-long break from creative work. And I didn't really realize how much I needed a break until I just kind of took that time, and as the anniversary trip was coming up, I told myself that I was going to do everything I could to be in a position so that I could truly break away and not have to worry about things. The nature of my job is that partly I need to be on call sometimes, which is normal for my line of work. But the part of my job that is not technically required by my job, but has more to do with my personality, is I have a tendency to stay online or stay connected really more often than I have to. I think this comes in large part from early in my career when I started to try to be more ambitious about taking on projects and learning to do my job better and getting opportunities and trying to get raises and promotions and stuff. I started to develop a relationship with work where I found that although I was very early in my career and I didn't have a lot of experience, one thing I did have was time, and that I could give more and more of my time to my employer and to my job. And that was one path, at least, to try to get better and grow my career. This was really important to me when I was younger, in my 20s especially, because I felt a strong need to not feel the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month pressure of money and that kind of stress. And so I channeled that into really trying to make more money is what it came down to. This took a very predictable path, frankly. I was rewarded for sacrificing more and more of my time with more work, and but that also came with more responsibility, and with time that came with increased opportunities, a growing career, and that kind of stuff. And so I want to make it clear that I'm actually very grateful for my career and that I've been able to do that. It is not the case for everybody that simply deciding to really dedicate yourself to a career and making those choices doesn't necessarily result in the promotions and the increase in responsibility and such that you hope to get for that. A lot of people get passed up for stuff, and there's been plenty of times I've been passed up for things that I thought that I would be good for or whatever. But I have to say that when I look back where I was, say, 20 years ago, when I was much earlier in my career, pretty much just starting out, compared to where I am today, it's weird because I still carry that sort of need to be available, the relationship with work where I'd still like to make more money, but I've already achieved most of the goals I set out for myself when I was young. in terms of professional accomplishment. And that's really great. I mean, I think the big downside is I always carry this feeling that I owe somebody else more of my time. And it turns into this kind of guilt. If somebody asks like, hey, could you put in some extra time here? Could you finish this project, a little bit earlier? Could you, it comes in the form of different requests. Could you do this or that? And often the answer is, well, I could, made the decision not to have kids or, other family obligations outside of just my wife and I. And we're both working professionals and very focused on our career, I would say. And so it was always easy, because I had become habituated to saying yes, to just give and give and give. Like I mentioned earlier, that led to some very predictable places. Among them is this sense of guilt when you say no, a difficulty drawing boundaries, difficulty in being able to walk away from work and really completely mentally disconnect and say like, okay, I'm off now. My energy and my time and my attention are fully on, being with my wife or whatever. It took me really a long time to develop that. In fact, the last few years, I've been trying to work on that a lot more. What does all this have to do with the podcast, right? Well, this show, Wilderness and the Wellspring, right, is about both the wilderness, the hard times, the difficult times, the things that drain you, as well as the wellspring, the things that inspire you, that energize you, that get you to keep coming back for more beauty, more creativity, more enjoyment of being there and doing the thing that you love. And I very slowly, but I think mostly successfully, have been able to change my relationship to work so that, 9 days out of 10, when I'm done with work, I'm really done. I still have this like probably slightly unhealthy relationship with how much responsibility I feel like I have to give my job. Now, don't get me wrong. The huge upside to this is that I'm the kind of person that people really learn to trust quickly because I can carry a lot of responsibility and I can do it pretty well. And people know that although I'm certainly not perfect, that I will take the responsibility seriously and I'll do my best. And I'll do that consistently. But changing my relationship really had to do with learning to draw boundaries, learning to know, to get over the fear of saying no, of getting over the guilt of saying no to something, rather than say, well, how else could we solve this problem? Could we work with more people on the team? Could the project be delayed a little bit? Could we take something out of the project that's not super critical and still deliver on time? Those kinds of things. I used to, because I wanted to, when I was really young, I just wanted to grow my career and that was my main focus. I used to just say yes no matter what the request was. And now I'm much more intentional about, well, how else could we achieve the goal together so that I don't lose that sense of trust from other people that I've worked very hard to develop so that people feel like they can trust me with important things. I don't want them to feel like I'm just walking away or that I don't care about the projects or whatever at work. But I do want to be able to say, it's the end of the day, the project's been going well. Let's wrap it up for today. We can come back and just pick it up where I left off. But like I said, that's taken me a long time. It's taken me years to intentionally and slowly change how I think and my automatic triggers around feeling guilt and responsibility around those things. The huge upside, right, is just a better work-life balance. As it relates to creativity specifically, First of all, it frees up more time for me to do creative stuff, which is great because when I'm not at work, I really feel like I don't feel bad about working on creative stuff. Whereas before, I used to feel like doing creative stuff at night on the weekends was potentially taking away from work I could be doing for somebody else. And while that's sort of true, having the balance and setting boundaries actually, if you do it properly and with professionalism, can actually increase the respect people have for you because you don't just say yes to everything. You're careful and you're tactful and you're team oriented, but you still say no when it's appropriate to do so. How this translated into, I kind of took that workaholism into my creative work though. When I would work on creative stuff, I would overcommit to myself. When I didn't finish a project or I didn't finish it on time or it wasn't the quality I wanted or, the grand vision I had in my mind didn't come out in reality, the way that I wanted, I felt the same kind of guilt that I felt anytime I felt like I was letting somebody down at work, except I was letting myself down. And the hard thing about that is that I was both the boss and the employee in a sense when I'm working on my own creative stuff. I'm just letting myself down, and I used to be really hard on myself, and I would almost go through these. I would go through these waves of more energy, more enthusiasm, and then less. It kind of come and go. And I would be hard on myself for the times I was low on energy, thinking that, well, I just wasn't working hard enough, or I wasn't dedicated enough, or maybe I wasn't good enough to do the creative stuff. And so even after I learned to start setting boundaries at work, I still had this unhealthy thing with myself. And I think this vacation that I just took with my wife to celebrate our wedding anniversary and the couple of months, the 2.5 months in addition to that, is maybe the first time since I started to get serious about work that I finally, after 20 years of working in the tech industry, I finally felt like I took a real break, a long extended break. Now, I didn't take 3 months off of work, right? I just took a couple of weeks off work, but to come back to work, to give myself permission to say, I'm done at the end of the day and that's okay. I'll pick things up tomorrow. And then also to be thinking about, well, what should I be doing for my creative stuff? What about the podcast? What about the games I'm working on? Whatever. And being able to be kind to myself and say, it's okay if I just don't work on that stuff right now. It's okay not to be mad at myself for not, finishing all my hopes and dreams on creative stuff in record time. And it also took me a long time to develop a sense of trust in myself, especially the trust of the creative, the source of my creativity. I often would not only feel bad about not working on creative stuff, I would also be afraid that the creative spark that inspired a given project wouldn't come back if I didn't constantly feed it. And I found that that's not true for me anyway. I can walk away from a project, put it down, maybe write some summary notes to help me remember where I left off, but otherwise just kind of put it down and come back to it months later. And so long as I've given myself a real break, a real rest, I find that the creativity picks right back up. Maybe it takes me a day or two to reorient myself and remember what I was working on and what was important to me. And then I'll take some time to say, okay, what have I actually finished? What do I want to work on next? That kind of thing. But then once I get back into the flow of working on stuff, I feel that the creative spark comes right back, which is a huge relief. And I've slowly learned to trust that creative spark, it's always going to be there so long as I'm not too worn out to hear it. So yeah, this is something I learned about myself. If you're a creative person, working a regular full-time job and trying to make ends meet. Maybe you've got other responsibilities to family or friends or, health issues or anything like that. And if you've experienced something similar where you're worried that that creative spark is going to disappear if you don't capture it, there's a lot of rhetoric around like you've got to do your creative thing when you're young because most really famous, I don't know, musicians or something, they reach their peak around like 20 or 30, which is interesting because it's not actually true for everybody. There are a lot of, for example, musicians that have been around for decades, some of the best people, and they just keep producing great stuff. Not everything they do is great necessarily, but they keep producing at a high level decade after decade, and they find a way to consistently and sustainably do the creative work and have a relationship with it so that they don't burn out. There are many stories with people like that, even when they first reach whatever success means to them, that they're worried that they can't repeat it or they can't continue it. And, I'm too over analytical. I overthink things. And so I've had all those fears too. But what I noticed, I think more recently, just in the last few years, is that, well, here I am worried that if I don't act on some creative spark right away, that it's going to go away. And yet it's been 20 plus years. It's been over 30 since I knew that I wanted to do things around video games. And yet the spark keeps coming back year after year after year. That doesn't mean I've produced a lot of games because a lot of it has to do with my messed up relationship with that creative energy. Is I wouldn't let it flourish. I would judge it constantly. I would judge myself, and I used to, when I realized that, then also be hard on myself for wasting all those years. And then I eventually just learned to accept it and say, hey, it is what it is. I don't have a time machine. I can't go back. And it's okay. The creative spark's still here. Some of the most interesting and ambitious things I've ever wanted to do are some of the things I'm working on right now. And I also, mess around with this podcast and whatever. And it's all good. No need to put so much pressure on myself. For what it's worth, even though it's not all upside, focusing on a career when you're young, the huge upside is the investment you make when you're young versus being able to reap the rewards of that investment for a long time, which is kind of the phase I think I'm in now, where the level of experience and time I have in the industry now is enough that I don't so much have to worry about sacrificing my time and energy to an extreme degree just to be employed. I don't carry that fear around anymore. And that doesn't mean I don't ever worry about my job or my job performance or anything. I still have those moments of self-doubt and questioning, and I still sacrifice maybe more than I should. I don't know. But I'm really glad for the time I put in, because now I'm in a phase of life where I get to have that proper balance, and people know that I'll still take care of things and it'll still be done in a reasonable amount of time most of the time. And mostly they'll know, people I work with know that that the work will eventually get done one way or the other, that they can trust that I will take it seriously, and even if I'm late on something, I will do what I can to make it right. So I've been wanting to actually do an episode on taking breaks since vacation, but every time I did, I thought, well, hey, maybe I should keep this break going for a little while. Maybe I should just relax and see how deep I can get into the relaxation and the decompression. And it turns out I needed a 3-month break from doing creative stuff. Like I said, it only took a couple weeks off, from work and went right back into it. But wow, what a wonderful relief, kind of a gift to give to myself to say, hey, you can put the podcast down. It's fine. It'll still be there. It's just another something that I like to work on, and there's no reason to be upset or anxious about it. It's a creative thing. It's a fun thing, and I want to keep it that way. It's not my source of income, and that's fine. So it's fine to just take it as it comes. So that's it. It's really great to be back doing the podcast. It's really great to have recently published the episode, was it 15 with Dr. Rocaforte Gardner. We had a really great conversation. I think it was the episode right before this one. But it was also great to just stop for a while, for an extended period of time, and not be afraid that I would abandon it, and not be in a place where I was judging myself for not being more productive, basically. So that's it. I just wanted to share. This has been the Wilderness and the Wellspring podcast. You can find me on the service previously known as Twitter under the username @JeffLuntGames. You can also find me on Substack at wildernessandwellspring.substack.com. I want to thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.